Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the dev server and we're having a look at another new SAM system which is coming into the game. This time, this is the British one and it is the Sky Sabre. As you can see with the Sky Sabre, it's absolutely huge. It's an incredibly tall boy. I'm not sure if it's the tallest in the game because we have the Buck M3 with its little stick, which is also quite tall. But at least in terms of girth and also general size, the Sky Sabre is absolutely massive. Luckily, when you actually retract the radar, it is basically just a truck, so it's not too bad. You can hide it as effectively as all of these high-tier AAs, which is basically not effectively at all. This truck itself is powered by a 440 horsepower diesel engine, an incredibly interesting transmission, and then also a massive amount of electronic equipment. One of the hilarious things about sometimes when it comes to British naming conventions, some people have a general laugh. So when you have a look at something like this, what would you name it? That's right, it's the Giraffe, the good old Giraffe A&B search radar, which is attached to this. And then also, in terms of crew, you have two guys at the back here, and then you also have the driver in the front. Now, luckily, since this thing is so tall, it shouldn't get overpressured from getting it shot in the top. So if you hit it here, generally it'll only take out the search radar, which is quite nice. If you hit it here, though, it has an opportunity to be able to take out the stuff lower. And then also, if you hit it here, it will probably just destroy the vehicle. This vehicle is just like all of the other kind of radar systems. It's not really designed to take on ground vehicles. They give it scouting just to basically have it going along, but generally it's not going to be something that can defend itself. On the other hand, in terms of defense, you can at least defend yourselves against air, and that you do with the TEL part of the Sky Sabre. This one is a missile bus or a missile truck. It has access to the CAMM missiles, which are right here. And this one, I don't think can be used independently, basically meaning that if you lose the radar vehicle for Britain, you don't get access to actually using this. It will just despawn you and you'll have to move along. So you get 8 rounds, which is pretty similar to all of these other kind of NATO AAs. You also get the FCS here, some transmissions, once again, a 389 horsepower engine, and you get 3 dudes in the front, chilling together, 2 foot apart, because they're not gay. And then you also have the radiator, you also have the big old FCS, which is beautifully modeled. So all of this looks really nice, right? It's very similar to a lot of the other kind of like NATO-esque AAs, and the only differences are basically in the general pudding. So when you have a look at this radar, right, one of the more interesting things about it is it says it only has a range of 20 kilometers. That's actually not the case. It has a range of 100 kilometers, so don't worry about that. The other part of it that people may find interesting is the missiles themselves. So just like a lot of vehicles in this game, one of the more interesting things about the SAMs is they usually get really good missiles, and, you know, they are able to just use them straight away. For some reason, Britain has the unfortunate ability in Gaijin's eyes to always have to have these little mini silly nerfs that other nations don't have to deal with at specific BRs. So this new Sky Sabre coming in, you have 2 missiles. You have the CAMM, and then you also have the CAMM-ER. These are effectively the same missiles. The only difference between them is the first one has a 25-kilometer launch range, whereas this one has a 45-kilometer launch range. So the ER is obviously better, but you also have to grind it out. What is hilarious about this, as I said, it's very hilarious and very funny and very entertaining that this keeps happening to British vehicles. Don't know how else I can put it, but if you have a look at the American SAM system, it gets its best missiles straight away. If you have a look at the German system, this also gets the best missiles straight away. You also have the new Russian system. Can you guess what? Guess what? It also gets its best missiles straight away. And then so on and so on and so on. The only vehicle that doesn't is the CSSA-5, which functionally is not the same as many of these other multi-vehicle SAM systems. If you have a look at any of even the new ones with the Mamba, or maybe if you want to have a look at the Elder, all of these vehicles get their best missiles as a stock missile. And that just sucks. You know, there are different kind of, I suppose, strengths of them. These missiles in general, the CAM or the CAMM is on the lower end of the stream, or the lower end, sorry, of the missiles that are available at high tier, but the ER is kind of a middling one, which is around. It just sucks that you don't get this stock, especially since pretty much everybody else does get their good missile stock. So you have a missile here which has a pretty decent speed of 1028, has really good maximum overload, which is really nice. Doesn't have a huge warhead on it, just less than 5 kilos. And when it comes to trigger radius, only 6 meters. So you have to get very close to the target with this missile, but it still should do its active radar homing job. What is also nice is it has IOG and also DL. So even if it loses lock, it will go in a straight line until it finds lock again, or you find lock for it, which I think is pretty nice. The other factors, it has thermals. I suppose it has artillery and also scouting and a laser rangefinder. So at least there's all of that. But obviously, most of the standard modifications for these vehicles don't really matter too much compared to other vehicles of the same area. This vehicle very much depends on its missile, and the fact that it doesn't get its best missile straight away just is kind of sad. It also doesn't get a massive amount of general camos, but they look fine across the board. The major thing that this vehicle is, though, is it is a massive improvement over the ADAT's M113. The ADAT's M113 actually is quite a fun little multi-role vehicle. The MIM 14680 GEM/SAM missiles are actually very fun to use, and the only difference between this one and the one in the American tech tree is the one in the American tech tree gets guns, where this one doesn't. This one has actually worked pretty well for me in the past when using it at the higher echelons, but it's nothing compared to this vehicle, which of course is designed to be able to just knock stuff out of the air. And technically you could bring both of them along, right? And you could use them in different roles if you are able to. So here's the truck. In order to see the radar, you have to do this. So you have to basically set it up as so. You can, once again, have a pretty smaller silhouette, so if you kind of want to hide this behind a skyscraper, then you're able to. And at the same time, you know, you're probably just going to want to sit it somewhere and hope that nobody sees you. For the actual launcher vehicle, the launcher vehicle itself has similar kind of animations, which is not too surprising. So you have kind of like the receivers in the center, and then also you have the actual missiles themselves. To me, when it looks like the missile vehicle on this, the actual kind of launcher area looks a little bit smaller compared to other ones. So that's at least something that I've noticed. Now, one of the things to note about these missiles, which is pretty cool, is they launch and then they kind of turn. This is similar to what you see in the Tor. And I just generally think it's a really cool animation. So if you have a look from here, it goes up and then so this means that it actually has its kind of maneuverability straight away. It means that you can turn and attack anything that you want. So for example, it just goes up and go. And, you know, it just makes it a little bit easier for the missile to find the target straight away. And I think that's just pretty awesome. Just makes it so much easier for the actual setup. It also just looks cool, and as we know, looking cool is half of War Thunder, if not 60%. So, is it nice to see this thing? Of course it is. It's fantastic to see this vehicle. It's really nice, and hopefully, in the future, we can actually end up with more of these vehicles as we go along. And just to kind of show you where the thermals come into play, it's actually for the second vehicle. So if you want to kind of spot vehicles, if they're for some reason, you know, not locked, or if you want to see what you're actually shooting at, because this does have that system which kind of shows you generally what you're shooting at. then you can do that too. But I'm sure many people will be happy with this system. It fills a gap, and that's the main thing. It has the same issues as all the other SAMs, but it also has all the same positives as the other SAMs too. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.